comes from living as a stranger to comes from living as a stranger to yourself. You are tired of the performance, tired of the constant calibration, tired of the low-grade tension that accompanies maintaining the manufactured version of you that exists in other people's imaginations. You enter spaces and immediately begin scanning for signs of acceptance. You share fragments of your life online and then monitor the response like a stockbroker watching volatile markets. You speak and watch faces for micro-expressions that tell you whether you succeeded or failed at the invisible task of being likable. This is enslavement. You are bound to the opinions of people whose judgment you don't even value. Trapped in a culture that insists you must care about everything, always, with equal intensity and visible passion. But there is another path, a mental territory that the French thinker Michel de Montaigne mapped 4 centuries ago. A psychological fortress that modern systems desperately need you to never discover. Because if you found it, you would stop being manageable. You would stop being predictable. You would become ungovernable. This is the philosophy of strategic indifference. Not the passive collapse of someone who has given up, but the calculated, ice-cold detachment of someone who has realized that attention is the most valuable currency in existence, and he has been hemorrhaging it into worthless investments. I will show you how to construct this fortress, how to build an internal citadel that no insult, no rejection, and no catastrophe can penetrate. But this requires sacrifice. You must be willing to release the part of yourself that desperately needs to be understood by people who will never understand you. The secret to complete autonomy is not found in what you acquire. It is found in what you become willing to stop caring about. Let us dissect your daily existence with surgical precision. From the moment consciousness returns each morning, you begin losing energy at an alarming rate. You reach for your device. You absorb yourself in events you cannot influence. You react to messages from people who view you as a function, not a person. You replay conversations from weeks ago, searching for hidden meanings in casual remarks. You curate your appearance to communicate success. You curate your opinions to communicate virtue. You are bankrupt. The Stoics understood this, and later Montaigne articulated it with devastating clarity. There is a fundamental economic reality about human consciousness. You possess a finite reserve of emotional investment. Every time you respond with agitation to external stimuli, you are making a payment. You are spending focus. You are spending serenity. And most critically, you are spending your independence. Montaigne occupied every position society told him to want. Noble lineage, judicial authority, wealth, social recognition, and he was drowning. He recognized that his life had been colonized by external demands. His hours were consumed by political maneuvering. His mental space was occupied by social performance. So at 38 years old, he committed an act that would be considered radical abdication today. He withdrew, not merely from his position, from the entire apparatus. He retreated to a tower on his estate and carved Latin words into the wooden beam of the ceiling that essentially declared his independence, a formal announcement that he was reclaiming ownership of his own existence. And he sealed himself inside. He spent the remainder of his years writing, thinking, and mastering the discipline of not caring about what does not deserve care, so he could obsess completely over what does. He discovered what he termed the arrière-boutique, the back room of the shop. Imagine your consciousness as a commercial establishment on a crowded street. Customers enter constantly. They browse, they demand attention, they create disorder. Most people live entirely in the front of this establishment. They spend their entire lives managing these customers, the customers being the infinite demands of external reality. Montaigne proposed something different. You must maintain a back room behind the shop, a private chamber that belongs exclusively to you, a space that no family member, no obligation, no social expectation, and no public opinion can access. In this room, you are not fulfilling a role. You are not a parent. You are not an employee. You are not a citizen with duties. You are simply the raw consciousness that observes all of these roles. Most of you have never created this room. You have permitted the world to transform your entire interior landscape into a public commons. You have allowed the internet to establish permanent residence in your most intimate mental spaces. You have allowed the evaluations of strangers to occupy your decision-making centers. This is the source of your anxiety. Anxiety is simply what happens when your private chamber has been invaded and occupied. To recover your power, you must evict these occupants. This is not about physical isolation. You still must navigate social reality. You still must fulfill obligations and maintain surface-level pleasantries. But you must mentally construct an impenetrable barrier. When someone delivers criticism, they are addressing the shopkeeper in the front. They are not speaking to the consciousness in the back room. When you experience professional failure, the failure occurs in the shop. It does not penetrate the chamber. This detachment is the foundation of everything that follows. Without it, you are debris in a current. With it, you become the current itself. But how exactly do you build this barrier? You begin by understanding the backwards law. There is a perverse paradox embedded in human psychology. The harder you work to make people approve of you, the less they approve. The more desperately you try to be respected, the less respect you command. The more intensely you pursue happiness, the more miserable you become. Alan Watts identified this as the backwards law, the principle that the desire for a positive experience is itself a negative experience. Consider the person in your social circle who tries excessively hard, the one who laughs too enthusiastically at mediocre jokes, the one who agrees with everything to avoid friction, the one who constantly monitors whether you are enjoying yourself. Do you respect this person? No, you pity them. You may even find them irritating. Why? Because their neediness creates a vacuum. It drains energy from the environment. It signals to your unconscious assessment mechanisms that this person occupies low social status, that this person requires your validation to maintain psychological stability. Now consider someone who is genuinely unbothered, not hostile or dismissive, simply unaffected. The person who can sit in silence without discomfort. The person who states their perspective and does not scan the room for agreement. The person who can receive a joke at their expense and laugh, or receive an insult and remain unmoved. You are drawn to this person. You find yourself seeking their approval. Why? Because they are not seeking yours. Montaigne wrote that the greatest achievement in existence is to know how to belong to oneself. When you belong to yourself, you stop leasing your soul to others for temporary validation. And paradoxically, that is precisely when the world begins to assign you value. This is the philosophy of strategic indifference applied to social dynamics. It is not that I do not care about you, therefore I will treat you poorly. It is that I do not care what you think of me, therefore I will treat you with complete honesty. And honesty is rare. Honesty is magnetic. When you stop trying to impress, you become impressive. When you stop trying to be interesting, you become interested. And genuine interest is fascinating. You must practice the art of the shrug. Your superior criticizes your work unfairly. The old version of you would defend, explain, lose sleep ruminating. The new version listens, extracts useful data, and shrugs. You say, "I see your point," and return to work. You do not permit it to enter the back room. Someone does not respond to your message. The old version would send follow-ups, would spiral into interpretation. Did I offend them? The new version shrugs. You assume they are occupied or uninterested. Either scenario does not alter the value of what exists in your back room. This is not arrogance. Arrogance is camouflage for insecurity. Arrogance announces, "Look at me, I am superior to you." Indifference quietly communicates, "I do not need to compare myself to you at all." The moment you stop competing for status is the moment you win the competition, because everyone else is playing the game of, "Please validate me," and you are playing the game of, "I am already complete." The energetic shift is palpable. People detect it. They can sense the desperation on the first type of person, and they can sense the sovereignty on the second. Become the second. Montaigne lived through the French wars of religion. It was an era of chaos, betrayal, and massacres. Neighbors slaughtered neighbors over theological disputes. He had to navigate court politics, where one poorly chosen word could result in execution. He did not survive by being authentic in the way modern culture uses that term. He did not expose his complete inner life to everyone. He did not perform his truth publicly to his enemies. He survived by understanding the distinction between the mask and the face. He wrote, "We must lend ourselves to others, but give ourselves to ourselves." Read that again carefully. Lend, not give. Most of you are giving yourselves away. You are giving your core identity to your professional title. You are giving your self-worth to your relationship status. You are giving your emotional stability to your political affiliation. So when you lose the position, you do not just lose a source of income. you lose your sense of self. When the partner exits, you do not just lose a companion, you lose who you believe you are. Montaigne teaches us to wear social roles like loose garments. Be the diligent professional, be the loving partner, be the responsible citizen. But know, deep in the back room, that this is simply a role you are performing. It is not the essence of who you are. This is strategic dissociation. It allows you to operate in high-pressure environments without psychological destruction. Imagine an actor performing Hamlet. He screams, weeps, fights. But when the performance ends, he removes the costume and goes home to eat dinner. He is not traumatized by Hamlet's suffering because he knows he is not Hamlet. You are traumatized by your life because you believe you are the character. You believe you are the failed entrepreneur. You believe you are the divorced individual. You believe you are the social outcast. No, those are simply scripts you were handed. The philosophy of strategic indifference asks you to look at the script and say, this is an interesting plot development, instead of saying, my existence is ruined. When you separate the mask from the face, you become untouchable. Someone attacks your mask. Oh, you do not approve of how I perform that role. Interesting observation. It does not touch the face. This is how you survive toxic professional environments. This is how you survive relationship dissolution. You realize they are rejecting the role, the projection, the mask. They cannot reject you because they have never encountered the real you. The real you is in the back room, reading, unbothered. Montaigne warns us that the most terrible and violent of our diseases is to despise our own being. When you confuse the mask with the face, you begin to hate yourself when the mask gets damaged. Stop. The mask is replaceable. The consciousness is not. Keep the mask loose, so loose that you can remove it at any moment and walk away. The power to walk away is the only power that matters. And you can only walk away if you are not psychologically fused to the costume. We live in a culture that demands certainty. You must have an opinion on geopolitical conflicts. You must have an opinion on economic policy. You must have an opinion on whatever viral content is circulating today. If you say, I do not know, you are perceived as weak, ignorant, apathetic. But Montaigne chose a different path. He had a motto engraved on a medal he wore constantly. Que sais-je? What do I know? This was not an admission of stupidity. It was a declaration of freedom. The person who believes they know everything is fragile. If you are completely certain about your worldview, one piece of contradictory evidence shatters your entire reality. You must defend your beliefs like a fortress under siege. You are constantly fighting, constantly arguing, constantly stressed. The person who embraces I do not know is fluid, like water. Is this person hostile toward me? Perhaps. Is the economy going to collapse? Perhaps. Am I a failure? Who can say? The story is not finished yet. When you release the need for certainty, you release the anxiety that accompanies it. You stop attempting to predict the future. You stop attempting to control the uncontrollable. This is the ultimate expression of strategic indifference. Who cares if I am correct? Who cares if I win the argument? Most people destroy relationships simply to be right. They would rather burn connections than say, I might be wrong. Why? Because their ego is fused to being the one who knows. Montaigne teaches us to be the skeptic, not the cynic who hates everything, but the skeptic who doubts his own certainty. When you detach from your own opinions, you become incredibly dangerous in debate. You become dangerous in negotiation. Why? Because you have nothing to defend. You can listen, you can pivot, you can change your position without experiencing shame. While your opponent is red-faced, screaming, defending his ego, you are sitting back, curious, asking questions. You are playing with ideas while he is dying for them. The person who is willing to look foolish is the only one who can actually learn. If you care too much about appearing intelligent, you will remain ignorant. You will never ask the simple question. You will never attempt the new approach. You will stay in your comfortable zone, terrified of the edge. Say it, I do not know. Feel how light that is. I do not know what comes next. I do not know if this will work. I do not know if they approve of me. Good. Now you are free to discover. Now you are free to experiment. The weight of omniscience is removed from your shoulders. You are just a human navigating through uncertainty, and for the first time, you are comfortable with the uncertainty. You are terrified of solitude. Admit it. When you are alone, you reach for the device. You activate a podcast. You turn on the television. You need noise. You need distraction. Why? Because when the noise stops, the thoughts begin. And you are afraid of your own thoughts. You are afraid of the emptiness. Blaise Pascal, another French philosopher who studied Montaigne, said all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. Montaigne knew that if you cannot be alone, you cannot be free. If you cannot be alone, you are dependent. You are dependent on others for your entertainment, for your validation, for your sense of self. If everyone disappeared from your life tomorrow, would you collapse? Or would you simply retreat into your back room? Montaigne's practice of solitude was not about hiding. It was about strengthening. He wrote about the need to have a consciousness that can keep itself company. This is the ultimate test for the philosophy of strategic indifference. Can you sit in a chair for 30 minutes with no device, no book, no music, and just be? Can you face the boredom? Boredom is the gatekeeper to clarity. We live in an age of dopamine addiction. We care too much about being entertained constantly. We treat boredom like a disease. But it is in the boredom, in the silence, that the mask falls away. It is in the silence that you hear the truth about your existence. Perhaps that is why you run from it, because the truth is painful. The truth is that you are in the wrong profession. The truth is that your relationship is dead. The truth is that you are wasting your potential. So you scroll. You care about the drama on social media, so you do not have to care about the decay in your own soul. The outlier stops running. He sits in the silence. He lets the pain rise. He observes it. Who cares if it hurts? Pain is just information. He sits there until the boredom transforms into clarity. When you learn to love your own company, you become selective. You no longer spend time with low-value people simply to avoid being alone. You no longer tolerate disrespect just to have someone to talk to. You become expensive. People sense this. They sense that you do not need them. You choose them, and there is a massive difference. To be chosen by someone who needs nothing is the highest compliment. To be needed by someone who cannot be alone is a burden. Build your capacity for solitude. It is the fuel for your indifference. The more you enjoy your own consciousness, the less you care about what others think of it. You become a self-sustaining system, and in a world of parasites, the self-sustaining organism is the sovereign. We have reached the root, the dark soil from which all your anxiety grows. Why do you care so much? Why do you care if you experience embarrassment? Why do you care if you lose resources? Why do you care if you are alone? Because deep in your biological programming, your machinery equates social rejection and loss of resources with death. You are an animal terrified of its own expiration. Montaigne was obsessed with death. For years, he lived in terror of it. He slept with light burning because darkness reminded him of the void. He was surrounded by the plague. He lost his closest friend, his father, his brother, and 5 of his children. Death was not abstract. It was a constant presence. But then, something shifted. He realized that his fear of death was actually a fear of life. He wrote, "To philosophize is to learn to die." This sounds morbid. It is not. It is the most life-affirming sentence ever written. If you are afraid of the end, you will clutch at the middle. You will be tight. You will be rigid. You will be safe. You will care about safety more than you care about experience. But if you accept that the end is inevitable, if you accept that you are a temporary biological event, a brief spark between 2 eternal darknesses, then the pressure dissolves. Who cares if you start a business and fail? You will be dead in 50 years anyway. Who cares if you approach that person and get rejected? Their opinion will rot in the ground, just like your embarrassment. Who cares if you do not fit in? The crowd is marching toward a cliff. Why march in formation with them? Montaigne did not just think about this. He experienced it. One day, while riding a horse, a collision occurred. He was thrown violently. He was knocked unconscious. He was bleeding from his mouth. His servants believed he was dead. When consciousness returned, he did not feel terror. He did not feel pain. He wrote that he felt a sweetness like slipping into warm water. He felt himself releasing life with gentle ease. He realized that dying was not the difficult part. The fear of dying was the difficult part. The anticipation was the torture. The event itself was natural. This is the lesson for your daily existence. The anticipation of the difficult conversation is worse than the conversation. The fear of the judgment is worse than the judgment. The anxiety you feel is a phantom. It is a projection of a future that has not happened. When you practice memento mori, when you look at your hand and realize it will one day be dust, You stop sweating trivial matters. And everything, absolutely everything that worries you right now is trivial. Your reputation, trivial. Your bank account, trivial. Your awkward moment at the social gathering, microscopic trivia. The person who has befriended their own mortality is invincible. You cannot threaten someone who has already accepted the worst-case scenario. You cannot manipulate someone who knows their time is limited. He becomes ruthless with his time. He eliminates the unnecessary. He says no to obligations he hates. He stops trying to please people he will never see again. He lives with a terrifying urgency, not the frantic urgency of the rat race, the calm urgency of the sunset. He watches the sun descend and thinks this is beautiful, and it is leaving, and so am I. And in that realization, he finds peace. Most of you are fighting existence. You are swimming upstream. You are trying to force outcomes. You are trying to make people love you. You are trying to bend reality to your will. You are exhausted because you are rigid. Montaigne discovered a different kind of power, the power of softness. He wrote about yielding to the nature of things. When he fell from that horse, he did not tense up. If he had tensed, he might have broken every bone. He went limp. He yielded to the fall, and he survived. There is a Taoist concept called Wu Wei, effortless action. Montaigne arrived at the same conclusion in his tower. When you are rigid, you break. When you are soft, you absorb. This is the ultimate expression of strategic indifference regarding control. Who cares if things do not go exactly according to my plan? The control freak says it must happen this way, or I am a failure. The Montaignian philosopher says, I will do my work, and then I will let the chips fall. He trusts the chaos. Think about how much energy you waste trying to control other people's perceptions of you. You craft the perfect message. You rehearse the perfect sentence. You select the perfect outfit, and they still misunderstand you. They still judge you through their own lens. You cannot control the wind. You can only adjust your sails. Stop trying to control the wind. Montaigne admitted he had a terrible memory. He admitted he was sometimes lazy. He admitted he was not a great scholar. He did not try to hide his flaws. He yielded to them. He wrote about them openly. And by doing so, he disarmed his critics. If you say I am an idiot sometimes, no one can insult you by calling you an idiot. You have already owned it. You have yielded to the truth. This is the judo of consciousness. When the world pushes you, do not push back. Pull. Step aside. Let the world's momentum carry it past you. Your superior screams at you. Do not scream back. Do not defend. Just observe. Yield to his anger. Let him exhaust himself. His anger is his problem. It is not yours. By refusing to engage in the fight, you win the fight. This requires a deep, profound lack of ego. You must be willing to lose the argument to win the peace. You must be willing to look weak to be truly strong. The oak tree stands rigid against the storm and snaps. The bamboo bends to the ground and springs back up when the wind passes. Be the bamboo. Care less about winning and more about surviving intact. Your mental health is more important than your ego's victory. Who cares if I looked weak? Who cares if they think they won? You are in the back room sipping wine, reading, while they are out in the storm shouting at the wind. We worship power. We worship status. You look at the executive, the politician, the influencer with millions of followers, and you feel small. You feel like they possess something you do not. You feel their judgment weighs more than yours. Montaigne had a hammer for this idol worship. He wrote one of the most savage sentences in philosophical history. Sit we upon the highest throne in the world, yet sit we only upon our own behind. Read that again. Visualize it. The monarch sits on a golden throne. He holds a scepter. Armies move at his command. But physically, biologically, he is just a mammal sitting on his buttocks. He gets hemorrhoids. He gets digestive issues. He has bad breath in the morning. He is insecure about his hairline. He argues with his spouse. Montaigne wanted to strip away the mystique. He wanted you to see the human behind the title. Why do you care what the executive thinks of you? He is just a person sitting on his behind. Why do you care what the internet celebrity thinks? She is just a person sitting on her behind, staring at a screen, desperate for dopamine. When you realize that everyone, absolutely everyone, is just a confused, fragile human being trying to figure it out, the hierarchy collapses. You stop being intimidated. Intimidation comes from mystification. You are mystified by their success. You think they are a different species. They are not. They are you with different circumstances and different masks. Montaigne served as mayor of Bordeaux. He was a powerful politician, but he refused to take the role seriously. He did the work, but he did not become the mayor. He said the mayor and Montaigne have always been two, by a very manifest separation. He sat on the mayoral throne, but he knew he was sitting on his own behind. This is the cure for imposter syndrome. You feel like a fraud because you think everyone else is authentic. Montaigne tells you everyone is a fraud. Everyone is performing. Everyone is improvising. The executive is improvising. The president is improvising. Your parents were improvising. So why are you so hard on yourself? Why do you care if you do not belong? Nobody belongs. We are all just tourists on this planet wandering around, bumping into each other. When you walk into a high-stakes meeting, visualize everyone sitting on the toilet. It is crude, it is vulgar, but it is true, and it will instantly kill your anxiety. You will see them not as gods, but as peers, and you will speak truth to them because you no longer fear their divine judgment. There is no divine judgment. There is only the opinion of another mammal sitting on its behind. We are told that to matter, we must be extraordinary. We must change the world. We must leave a legacy. We must be on magazine covers. And if we are just normal, then we have failed. This is the toxic engine of modern capitalism. It runs on your insecurity. It runs on your fear of being average. Montaigne, after achieving everything, decided that the greatest achievement was to live an ordinary life well. He wrote about eating. He wrote about playing with his cat. He wrote about the simple pleasure of scratching an itch. He said storming a breach, conducting an embassy, ruling a nation are glittering deeds. Rebuking, laughing, buying, selling, loving, hating, and living together gently and justly with your household and with yourself is something more difficult. It is easy to be a hero for 10 minutes. It is hard to be a decent human being for 50 years. It is hard to appreciate the fruit you are eating while you are eating it, instead of thinking about the empire you have not built yet. The philosophy of strategic indifference ends here. Who cares if you are not a billionaire? Who cares if you are not famous? Who cares if history forgets your name? Montaigne teaches us that the texture of existence is in the small moments. The extraordinary is often a cage. The celebrity cannot walk freely. The billionaire cannot trust friendships. The ordinary person is free. He can enjoy the sun. He can enjoy his coffee. He can read in his back room without the world watching. This is the ultimate rebellion. To look at a world that demands you be special and say, "No thanks, I prefer to be content." To accept your mediocrity is to transcend it. When you stop trying to be a god, you finally get to be a human. And being a human is a miracle. You have senses. You have consciousness. You have this moment. Why poison it with desperate need for more? More is the enemy of enough, and enough is abundance. Montaigne found his abundance in a tower with a few books and a view of his garden. He did not change the course of history. He did not conquer nations. He just wrote about what it felt like to be him. And by doing so, he reached across 4 centuries to save us. He saved us from the lie that we need to be anything other than what we are. So where does this leave us? It leaves us in the back room. You build the fortress. You raise the drawbridge. Inside, you cultivate your garden. You read your books. You love your family. You do your work with excellence, but without attachment. Outside, the world screams. The markets crash. The politicians lie. The influencers posture. The neighbors gossip. You hear it, but you do not let it in. You have mastered the art of strategic indifference. You care about your integrity. You care about your peace. You care about the few people who actually know the face behind the mask. But the rest, the opinions, the expectations, the noise, it is just wind against stone. You are the stone. You have realized that you are dying, and because you are dying, you have no time for nonsense. You have realized that you are sitting on your own behind just like the monarch, and because of that, you have no fear of power. You have realized that you do not know anything for certain, and because of that, you have no anxiety about being wrong. You are free. You are the outlier. You are the ghost in the machine. You operate within society, but you are not of society. They cannot control you because they have nothing to offer you that you do not already possess. They offer validation. You have it from yourself. They offer status. You know it is theater. They offer belonging. You belong to yourself. Walk out of this experience and observe the world. Look at the frantic faces. Look at the people performing for invisible audiences. Do not judge them. Just shrug. Return to your shop. Serve the customers. Smile. But keep the key to the back room in your pocket. And never, ever let them in.